And just talking about the internet, because it is so global, if bullies are posting things on YouTube and on Facebook, on MySpace, how big is the audience now compared to, you know, the playground, you know, with the internet? Is the audience growing along with that?
It's huge. So when we got involved with YouTube, YouTube didn't want to shut down the website. And it really, we had to get newspapers involved and certain people involved, so YouTube would shut down that account.
You know, you think about being an adolescent, so go back to middle school, what you were saying, Jeff. You think about being an adolescent, and I'll exaggerate this a little bit, but there'll be people that won't leave their bedroom because they have a pimple on their face and they're afraid to go to school that day because someone's going to point at their pimple. Well, you know, imagine that being humiliated, and that humiliation is not only going to sort of a select group of people, maybe 5 or 6 people, but imagine being humiliated in middle school and it's going to hundreds of people. One's self-identity in middle school is very, very fragile. And actually the bullies, what we know about the bullies is that their self-identity is perhaps more fragile than the people that they're bullying, but the way that they have sort of compromised that sense of insecurity is by inflicting pain on others in order for them to feel stronger and they don't have to look at their own weaknesses. But back to your question about cyber, so this humiliation, you go from, well, I don't want 5 people to know about this, I'm going to hide it, to potentially hundreds of people aware of something that you're embarrassed about and you feel like it's going to just shatter your whole world.
Well, what about the bullies? I mean, you're talking about how you know, their self-esteem is low themselves. How do you think the effect of it is going to be in the long term? Are they, you know, talking about the digital footprint? You know, is this still going to be on the internet, you know, 10, 15, 20 years from now when they've moved on from being a bully, so to speak?
Great question. Great question. At this point, you know, what we do in therapy with people that have bullied and there isn't a footprint is that they get to apologize. Sometimes they'll write a letter to the person that they bullied, and they can feel better about the inside themselves. But you're asking the question, potentially these bullies' grandchildren can watch how they were when they were younger. Now, I wouldn't want my grandchildren to see me at parties when I was 18 or 19 years old, and I'm glad they're not. But these are people that their footprint is, and I tell students, I go, you know, right now it's cool, people are doing it, you don't imagine the consequences, but stop and think for a second. Do you want your future wife, do you want your future husband, do you want your grandchild or your children to be able to see these sort of behaviors? And I don't think people are really thinking about the consequences of that. Many bullies will find some empathy down the road. They come to a point where they are able to say, boy, what I did, there's some maturing that happens. And ideally, they'll be able to forgive themselves as they work through and understand. But they might have a more difficult time forgiving themselves if there is this footprint, and they might be worried themselves.
Jeff, do you have any?
Well, like Mark says, we don't know. We really don't know. I mean, cyberbullying and the internet is recently pretty new. And how it's going to affect down the road, like he said, I wouldn't want anybody no idea what's 17, 18 years old. You know, and what does these guys do? You know, it's a good question.
Do you think Facebook and MySpace has added to this problem?
Oh, most definitely.
It's not just email and AIM and that kind of...
No, I think MySpace and YouTube, the way they handle their cyberbullying and that type of, I think they're very irresponsible. You know, you get cyberbullying, that, number one, the site should be shut down instantly. And number two, YouTube should give up, or MySpace should give up the information. Who's doing it? And these guys should be prosecuted. Because they're vicious. I mean, the one YouTube thing we got involved with, it was vicious. I mean, it wasn't simple bullying. I mean, it was borderline, you know, to me, it felt like it was almost like attempted murder. I mean, with the way they were talking to these kids and the way they were talking to his mother and everything else. I mean, and YouTube just kind of sat back. You know, waited till the legal thing took over and dragged it out. That's wrong.
And what do you think cyberbullying generally involves? Is it usually sexual attacks? Is it personal attacks? Mark, what do you think it normally involves?
Well, typically they find what, as Jeff had said, they'll find some weakness in that person and they'll just go at it and go at it. For guys, it's typically around insinuating that they're gay or that they're a sissy or that they can't stand up for themselves. There's some kind of intimidation usually that goes on. There's some kind of shaming that goes on. And as I said before, in junior high and high school, it's pretty easy to find a weakness in someone.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Just moving on a little bit. How can children actually prevent cyberbullying from happening to them?
Well, I'll state my opinion. I think probably Jeff is much more of an expert in it, but I think, parents are going to start to have conversations with their kids at a very young age about, if this happens to you, we want you to let us know. Now, there's been a whole campaign for the last 25 years about good touch and bad touch. And that wasn't when I was a kid. There was no conversations like that. And that's been something that's happened. And my kids are 27 and in their 20s. And I know that was part of the conversation that I was told as a parent, is to teach your kids about good touch and bad touch. I would hope and I would think that in the direction that Jeff is going, that's what parents are going to have to do, is like, please come to me. We want you to come to me. You don't have to feel shamed about it. We're not going to blame you. We're not going to re-victimize you. We want to know, because I know that you might be embarrassed about us getting involved, but we will do it in a way that will save your dignity. We'll find out a way. Most kids don't want their parents to get involved because they're afraid that if they get their parents involved, it's going to create even more. They're going to be made fun of even more.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, do you?
Yeah, well, he's right. We found that most parents don't know what's going on. Project 51, we just developed a parent side of the program where we tell parents, you must document everything. You notice your kids acting a little different, don't want to go to school, failing grades, document everything what you see, ask questions. And most of the time we ask these parents to ask general questions. Hey, how was your day? How was this? How was that? Because we found most kids don't want to talk about it because they're embarrassed. They've been cyberbullying or they've been bullied constantly. They don't want mom and dad to know. And we constantly tell parents the most important thing you have is the communication, talking. Just keep talking, and document and document and document. Because you'll find out there'll be a pattern. And once that pattern's formed, then you can take the appropriate actions that needs to be done.
Okay, and just talking about the parents' role, should they be, you're talking about monitoring, should they be going onto the computers and, getting Facebooks and monitoring what their children are doing, or blocking the Facebooks? Where do the parents come in, and where should they leave their children to, have the Facebook or the MySpace?
Well, the parents need to get involved with what their kids are doing. As far as they need to go online, see what they're doing, see what their MySpace is, accounts, see what they're doing on YouTube, and they need to look at their phone, what's going on with their phones. Most every kid I know texts, like my oldest son, he'll text 500 text messages a month, and more kids do that. You got to know what those essence are, what's going on, especially if there's any different changes in his attitude or her attitude. You got to know what's going on.
Okay.
Most definitely.
And where do teachers come into all of this? We were just talking about the teachers and the schools getting involved. What is their role in stopping it from happening?
It's a whole community. It's a part of everything. And you got to get everybody involved in the part. This is the only way bullying is going to stop. You can't blame one facet or the other facet. You have to get everybody involved, going in one direction, and getting that direction accomplished. It's easy to point fingers. It's hard to get everybody together and go in one thing.